Hi, my name's Mick Matthews, Senior Programme Officer for the Network of Sex Work Projects, NSWP, the Global Sex Worker Network. Welcome to the second of the NSWP Global Fund Basics video series. This one is on country coordinating mechanisms, most commonly referred to as CCMs. The CCM is responsible for identifying the work that needs to be done in HIV, tuberculosis and malaria, and submitting technical proposals to the Global Fund, identifying the principal recipient, and overseeing the implementation of grants. The CCM does not implement or manage Global Fund grants or programs. This is the job of the principal recipient, who signs the contract with the Global Fund and has legal responsibility for grant management and implementation. The principal recipient can be any type of organisation, from a government ministry to a community-based organisation to a private sector entity. In most cases, principal recipients disperse funds to other organisations who serve as subrecipients or even sub-subrecipients. The purpose of this is for financing to effectively cascade to smaller organisations, and for programs to be carried out to reach those populations or groups which may not be easily reached by a government. The CCM is intended to operate as a partnership between governments, civil society, the private sector, and affected communities. Any stakeholder who is involved in the response to the three diseases of HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria may be a CCM member. And it is the country who decides who sits on the CCM, not the Global Fund. So in reality, CCMs are often dominated by governments, and communities and key populations, such as sex workers, can struggle to have any real influence. And there are no easy answers to this, and we will look at the issue of power dynamics later in this video. Slide 2. So the CCM is responsible for coordinating funding requests, ensuring inclusion of all stakeholders, addressing gaps in services and commodities, selecting principal recipients, and supporting and overseeing the principal recipients. Of course, not all these activities happen as they should. Not all stakeholders are equally included. Service gaps may be identified without input from communities. Selection of the principal recipient may not be as transparent as it should be. But it is worth remembering when we criticise the CCM, and the criticism is often justified, that there are no other structure that exists where a sex worker might be in a position to influence where and how millions of dollars are invested and programs for key populations are supported. The CCM model needs to improve, but not to be done away with. Slide 3. All CCMs must meet 6 minimum requirements for a funding request to be accepted by the Global Fund. These 6 minimum requirements are: 1. Transparent and documented proposal solicitation and review process, ensuring the input of a broad range of stakeholders, including CCM and non-CCM members. Usually there will be a CCM writing team, probably consultants or from one of the technical partners, whose task is to reach out to communities for input during the development of a funding request. Does this system work? Well, that depends on the power dynamics on the CCM. The different vested interests, NGO politics, like which organisations' inputs are considered, and these are different in each country. Overall, the system works, although undoubtedly in each country there are elements that could be improved. Number 2, facilitate an open, transparent, and documented process for nominating and selecting principal recipients, or PRs as they're commonly referred to. This is also an area that does not always go to plan. If you have concerns about the process or the nominated PR, you need to document your concerns. Show evidence to support those concerns. And bring it to the attention of the CCM through your community representative and other CCM allies, and use the Global Fund policies and guidelines to strengthen your case. If this is not possible, inform the Fund Portfolio Manager, the CCM Hub at the Global Fund Secretariat, the CCM Evolution, also at the Secretariat, and the Community Rights and Gender teams, again at the Secretariat at the Global Fund Secretariat. These two requirements are assessed by the Global Fund Secretariat at the time a CCM submits a funding request. The rest, requirements 3 through to 6, are regularly assessed throughout the lifetime of the grant by the CCM. Now I know this is messed up and is a bit like the police monitoring the police, but that is how it is at the moment. So number 3, oversee program implementation and implement an oversight plan. The oversight plan must describe how the CCM will engage program stakeholders in oversight, including CCM members and non-members, in particular non-government constituencies, that's sex workers, and people living with and or affected by the diseases. Number 4 is document the representation of affected communities. This is also a bit tricky. Many CCMs fully comply with this requirement, but there are those that do not. The problems lie with the power dynamics and prejudice against criminalised populations, but also in the wording of the CCM policy, which states in point 2, people from and representing key populations. Now that is open to interpretation. For example, a non-sex worker representing an organisation who provides services to sex workers could be on the CCM representing sex workers. And although they are not a sex worker, would still meet the requirement. As with most CCM issues, there are no easy solutions or quick fixes. Try and work with your allies on the CCM, and develop a dialogue with the CCM Evolution team to address the issues of representation. Number 5, ensure representation of non-government members through transparent and documented processes. All non-governmental and key population members must be selected by their own communities, by their own constituencies. This means if there is a designated sex worker seat, that person must be nominated and selected through a documented process by sex workers. The CCM cannot simply appoint someone. And finally, number 6, adopt and enforce a code of conduct and conflict of interest policy. And it is some of the CCM policies we're going to look at now.